In today's video, we're going to look at whether Suicune is any good. How does it compare to other legendaries, its ingredient list, its skill rate, and a revisit of the overstacking strategies. Thank you to the Rainanix website. We now have the skill rate and the ingredient rate of Suicune. We also know its frequency, but what is really important isn't the individual numbers, but how they work together. How many triggers of Suicune's skill helper boost do we expect in a day? And how does it compare to the other two legendaries that came before it, Entei and Raikou? So while Suicune has the slowest frequency of all three legendaries at 45 minutes, whereas Entei is 40 minutes and Raikou is 35 minutes, it has the highest skill trigger rate of them all. Incidentally, it also has a higher ingredient rate, but we're not going to focus on the ingredient rate today. And you can see how the three legendaries compare to each other in terms of their skill output. We're going to go to the Pokédex section of the Rainanix website, and we're going to select skill Pokemon only, have fire, water, electric selected, and sorted the Pokemon by the expected skill count. And you can see that amongst the three legendaries, unfortunately, Suicune has the lowest of the skill trigger rate. So at first, you might think that Entei, even though it's only marginal, would be the best of the three legendaries to use for whatever purpose. For example, for overstacking. Overstacking meaning that you will keep using this skill without collecting any of the ingredients or berries on your other Pokemon so that they can keep stacking on top of the inventory limit and bring those materials to the next week. But it's not as simple as that, because Suicune excels in one thing where the other two legendaries are not as good at. Its berry strength is the highest of the three. So what I mean by that is, and you can see these numbers under berries in the Rainanix calculator, every berry has a base strength. If you have a level 1 Pokemon, a fire berry will produce 27 strength. Things that modify this strength, for example, if you level up a Pokemon, you scroll this to say level 60, then the strength per berry goes up. Of course, some Pokemon can farm 2 or 3 times of this berry. You simply multiply by the number of berries that you farm to get the strength per production. Now, if the skill trigger rate were exactly the same, I would prefer that the helper boost skill to trigger on Pokemon that produce strong berries. We've actually covered this before in the context of farming Slowpoke tails or farming strong berries like steel type berries, which have one of the highest strength in this game. So as you can see, Bellyberry has 33 strength, or maybe Dragonberry, which is 35 strength, the highest in this game. Because Helper Boost ignores frequency of your Pokemon and simply gives you the production. Even if Altaria is really slow, it doesn't matter to Helper Boost, it will still produce however many helps from the Helper Boost skill times the number of berries that this Pokemon produces. So between triggering Helper Boost on Yache Berry and triggering Helper Boost on Lumberry, I would much rather have the extra 11 strength, and this is at level 1 and it goes up significantly more at high levels. So this is for level 60, you can see Yache Berry is 150 and Lumberry is 103 strength. I would much rather Helper Boost trigger on this, which would normally take longer to farm anyway than to trigger on this. And that is why we have to also look at the berry strengths of the berries that these legendaries support. So Raikou, even though the main argument for Raikou is that it's going to be useful for a later island that hasn't been released yet with its electric berry type, unfortunately it is supported by one of the weakest berries in this game, Grepper Berry. The Pokemon that farm Grepper Berry are very fast, so normally Raichu wins by having a very high speed, even though its berries aren't very strong. But as I said, Helper Boost doesn't care about the speed of the Pokemon and simply produces a set number of berries. So where Suicune wins, compared to its two legendary peers, is that it produces the strongest berry of the three. In fact, between Leppa Berry and Grepper Berry, there's only a small difference between them with a base strength difference of 2, whereas Oranberry has a base strength increase of 4 from Leppa Berry, which is a bigger jump. And while Suicune does have a lower trigger rate, it produces the strongest berry of the 3. And better yet, one of its supporting members is the Slowpoke line, which is normally very slow. And if you were using it as a tail farmer by itself, for example with Slowbro, it can take quite some time to get enough tails. But with Suicune's helper boost on the team, if we were to take a best case scenario where you're running a full water team and Suicune has level 6 main skill, it will produce 11 extra helps for every single Pokemon on the team. In fact, if you were theoretically really just hoping to get tails only, what you can do is run Suicune with Slowbro, Slowking, and Slowpoke on the team, and then have one other water type member. It doesn't really care that your Slowpoke is not evolved, when normally Slowpoke would be too slow to farm anything at all. Let's take a look at the actual numbers. For this first analysis, I'm going to use level 30 unlock for all of the Pokemon, and I'm going to have Suicune at level 7 main skill. I'm also going to give all 3 Slowpoke lines level 6 main skill, which is their max level, just to keep the energy a little higher. And I'm going to set the sleep to just 1 sleep, 8.5 hours a day. Ignore this part, there's not going to be any extra healing in team analysis of the calculator. The helper boost amount of tails is shown down here, which is what we expected. So remember I said 11 extra helps if you have a full team of water Pokemon, but 11 extra helps, 1/5 of that would be ingredients, since the ingredient rate is about 20%. So we're expecting 2 ingredients every trigger, and we expect Suicune to trigger about 2 times a day. So in other words, 4 ingredients production per trigger, which is what we expect to see here. Now these numbers down here are the productions from Helper Boost. These numbers are the productions from the Pokemon themselves. Now I don't have the event bonus active right now, so the tails would look a lot smaller than if you did have Suicune event bonus on, which is +1 ingredients. As you can see, we get about 50% more tails in all situations, and this is at level 30. In total, we're farming about 20 tails per day. The level 30 tails competitor is Vaporeon, who will farm 6.3 tails in 24 hours if we can keep it healed the whole time and you're collecting every trigger. So let's be fair, let's say there's 5 Vaporeon on a team, then you would get 30 tails, and this is level 30. So Vaporeon theoretically is still the winner. So what if we look at level 60 unlock? If all of the Slowpoke Pokemon have the level 60 as tails, their tail productions increase a lot more. Instead of being a 50-50 split with Cacao, it's now a 75% tails production. So naturally, each Slowpoke line will be farming 5 or 10 tails per day, and also with the helper boost, they'll be getting approximately 3 to 4 Slowpoke tails in a day. In total, we're looking at about 40 tails, which is more than Vaporeon. Let's give Vaporeon level 60. If there were 5 Vaporeon on the team, you would still only get about 30 tails. The level of the Pokemon that's a skill specialist doesn't seem to affect its skill output as much as the skill level. And it's very important to understand this because the skill level is what makes a skill specialist strong. Hold up, there is something not quite right with Slowpoke. It farms naturally a lot less than Slowbro. So while it improves the skill for Helper Boost on Suicune, would it just be better for us to run another Slowbro instead of Slowpoke? Let's take a look. So remember this number, 40 tails, can we improve on that? Let's say we run another Slowbro instead. Without Helper Boost being 11 productions, it's now 9 productions of extra helps per Pokemon because there's only 4 different species of water Pokemon on the team. In total, we are actually farming more tails. So if you do happen to have that many Slowpoke line, then actually Slowbro being on the team twice is better than having Slowpoke to try and force the Helper Boost to become better. But then you probably remember there's such a thing as a goodnight ribbon. So why don't we give Slowpoke the benefit of running a 2000 hours slept 4-star ribbon, which will boost its speed. So then at level 60, because of the ribbon boost, Slowpoke will now farm a little bit more in Slowpoke Tails. It won't farm it from the Helper Boost anymore because Helper Boost is, well, the speed is irrelevant, but the increase is just not big enough to be worth running Slowpoke instead of Slowbro. So you can see it's 41 tails here. It's not a big enough increase to do that. But what if we mix in Vaporeon instead of running 2 Slowbros? What if we have Vaporeon here instead? Of course, now we have a little less healing because there's one less healer on the team, but let's give Vaporeon level 7 main skill, make it level 60 just like everyone else. It produces 6 tails from its ingredient magnet, which we kind of knew already from the earlier numbers. But the problem here is that Helper Boost doesn't improve the skill ingredient magnet. In fact, it doesn't help any of the Pokemon triggering their skills. It only helps them producing more berries and ingredients. So generally speaking, I wouldn't use Helper Boost on a skill specialist, with a few exceptions. For example, Slowpoke Line, because they're one of the few Pokemon that actually farm tails. So we still think of Slowpoke Line as kind of an ingredient Pokemon, though not an ingredient specialist. So as I said before, we haven't actually increased our tails production that much. In fact, it's worse than running Slowpoke in its place in terms of tails production. Vaporeon itself at level 30 made more sense to be doing tails, but at level 60, it's the Slowpoke Line that takes over. Of course, once ingredient magnet skill level goes up even more, then this could change slightly, but it probably isn't going to change enough for you to use Vaporeon for tails once all your Pokemon average at level 60. Incidentally, it's actually similar to using Helper Whistles, which don't help with skill productions. Again, they will only help with your berry and your ingredient productions, so try to avoid using skill specialists unless for some reason they are very berry or ingredient focused when you're using Helper Boost or Helper Whistles. And there's one more situation I haven't yet considered. What if we don't use Slowpoke since it's not ideal anyway? We don't want to use 2 Slowbro because it doesn't buff Suicune that much, or maybe we don't have enough resources to run 3 Slowpoke line Pokemon at level 60. What if we run Ditto at level 60 and it has Slowpoke tails? Ditto will farm just about the same tails as Slowbro. Slowbro will win out slightly. Helper Boost will provide 4 tails in a day, giving us 44 tails per day, which is slightly less than our situation with double Slowbro, but is still a very respectable amount. You could swap out Blastoise for Vaporeon, because up until now I was only considering a 4-member team build for Slowpoke Tails, but now we have a 5-member team build for Slowpoke Tails. We're going to give Vaporeon level 7 main skill, and we're hitting one of the highest number of Slowpoke Tails we've seen so far, so 48 tails per day. I guess the question now is, how does this compare to just running 5 Slowbro? Because, well, we can see that Slowbro itself farms a good amount of Slowpoke Tails. Now I maxed out the main skill level here for all Slowbro, and I unlocked level 60 tails. Then we're looking at probably the most tails you could get with any team build, which is 56 tails. Of course, it's not realistic to have 5 level 60 Slowbros, so this is purely for comparison purposes. So in terms of a more practical or realistic team build, a lot of people talk about running both Slowbro and Slowking. And of course, having that many farmers of tails, you need some healing, so having both of them doing the healing is not a bad idea. Probably not a great idea to invest 2 level 60 because the road to get to level 60 means no tails. So this feels like the most practical team build for one of the best ways to get Slowpoke tails, resulting in about 48 tails in a day. So it should take you about a week in order to get about 300 to 350 tails in preparation for the new week. You still need some other ingredients for your strongest dish to be made, Slowpoke tails being just extra ingredients for the first few dishes of the new week. For example, an event week. Yes, we could have also used this via the Entei or Raiko's helper boost, but of course, with Raiko and Entei, they are not water types, so the helper boost skill is weaker. So this is one very powerful niche use of Suicune if you plan well ahead of time, and you understand that, well, for the week that you're farming tails, you're not going to see much Snorlax strength at all. What some people might do though is that halfway through the week, once they've powered up Snorlax enough, they feel like they should be spending time farming resources instead, then you can employ this strategy. And there's another reason why Suicune can be considered the best legendary of the three, and is that there is a limit to overstacking. Each Pokemon on your team can only hold 999 items, be it berries or ingredients. So if you are overstacking so much that you actually manage to reach the absolute limit, it's better for the absolute limit to be holding 999 of a stronger berry than it is to hold a weaker berry. Of course, to actually reach 999 berries or ingredients can take weeks to achieve. But people stacking over many weeks is not unheard of. But I am not throwing shade on the other two legendaries. To be fair, they each have their own niche as well. For example, Entei has two berry specialists, both Typhlosion and Ninetales, that can be used part of its team building, and berry specialists excel in not worrying about any bag limit or pot size. They just keep producing berries that can keep feeding Snorlax. And overstacking, generally speaking, we want more berries than we do ingredients, so having berry specialists actually makes more sense. Raiko, of course, also has two berry specialists, but it's a little different because its two berry specialists, if we're only considering the fully evolved forms, are Raichu and the Witch Hat Pikachu. Unfortunately though, Witch Hat Pikachu is significantly slower than Raichu. So it's not quite the same as using Ninetales and Typhlosion in Entei's team. Witch Hat Pikachu is more like a regular Pikachu, being slightly faster than it is like a Raichu. Unfortunately for Suicune, it only has one berry specialist for a team member, and that's Feraligatr. It has 3 skill specialists that could be team members, and 3 ingredient specialists, one of which is not fully evolved. So in that regards, Suicune is the weakest of the 3 legendaries. Because while every other legendary is stacking times 3 berries, if you got berry finding S on your Raichu, your Witch Hat Pikachu, your Typhlosion or your Ninetales, this only exists in Feraligatr. There's no other option for times 3 berries. So how good these legendaries are really just depends on how you use them, who you use them with, and what your goal or your purpose is for using them. Next, we're gonna take a look at the ingredient list of Suicune. Suicune farms apples, oil, and corn at level 60. We actually kind of predicted that Suicune will be dessert focused because Entei is very salad focused with tomato and oils. Raiko is very curry focused with herbs and sausages. We were hoping that Suicune would have eggs, honey, and apples. It did turn out that Suicune has apples, but strangely enough, it also has oils, which kind of splits it away from being dessert focused, and it is closer to being a mix between salad and desserts. Let's take a look at why. So if we were to farm apples and we were to ignore any dish below 35% recipe bonus, apples are very dessert focused, being required in one of the strongest dishes. You can use it in a strong salad, but this salad actually has a low pot size and we want a large pot size so that you can utilize that recipe bonus. So all in all, it is best to use apples in desserts. So if your Suicune has AAX ingredient list, in other words, apple, apple, and then whatever, then at level 30, it is focused on desserts, which is what we expected. Unfortunately, if your Suicune has oil at level 30, itself is actually more of a salad farmer. Once again, the situation has flipped where the desserts which use oil, have a low pot size and also a low recipe bonus. And the dish that utilizes oils the best is green grass salad at 48% recipe bonus and a larger pot size. So if your Suicune is apple oil and you plan to use it a lot, then you might want to focus more on salads. Maybe during the Suicune event weeks and you are running Suicune, salad is a little more suitable for you. Alternatively, if your Suicune is apple, then desserts would be more suitable for you. Of course, we still have to look at every other team member and all other ingredients that you're farming to look at which dish type is best for you. And I'll leave this analysis to yourselves because every account is different. But we kind of did cover this topic before. We looked at every single water type Pokemon that were available before Suicune's release and see what dishes would make sense with them. With apple and oil being added to this list, we actually haven't changed any of the discussion at all because previously we did already discuss apples since Golduck can farm apples. And we also talked about oils because Feraligatr has level 30 oils. So if like me, your Feraligatr has oil at level 30 and 60 and you have level 60 unlocked, and then you get an oil Suicune that you want to use for the week, then salad might make more sense for you. So the problem with Suicune is that with a full water team building, we don't really have a perfect coverage for any specific dish type. So we might still end up running 1 or maybe 2 ingredient specialists just to cover the ingredients for a limited amount of time when we're running with Suicune. Let me know what you guys think about this analysis for Suicune and whether you think I've left any other pros and cons out regarding Suicune in the comments section below. Thank you for watching guys, don't forget to like and subscribe.